Welcome to Archenn Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. Good to have you back. It's been a while. The Lord is generous. Alright. This video is about guilds. My specific guilds in my world, in my game system, and how they are actually useful. And so I'm going to give you a bit of a preamble as to what the guilds are and how they got there, and then I'm going to jump into what they actually do and how they solve specific problems. So, first of all, when I want guilds, right? Just obviously, I play Elder Scrolls. I want guilds. Guilds are cool, factions, and all that kind of thing. And so I thought, well, you want a fighter's guild, a mage's guild, thieves guild, etc. But then we were looking at our character, classes, the Archenns and the Mantles, and we were thinking, it's not really it doesn't fit with our world to just say, oh, here's a fighter's guild and a mage's guild, and you just go there, and they give you quests to go out and fight and kill monsters or do magic things, and that's it. It's like, no, that's lame. Absolodon is so much cooler than that. You have to integrate it into the world and the world building and all that stuff. So we have 12 Archenns, right? These were ancient immortals that actually made the current world. They in mythic times, they converted that world and woke it up and turned it into the real world that, the game takes place in. And so these 12 Archenns essentially become the gods of man, although they aren't gods, they're called Archenns. But they are, the big immortal, disembodied rulers of men that people, revere and serve and all that. And that's what your character classes are modeling. I want to be like the skirmisher or the armiger or the brute, like your, barbarian and your fighter, etc. The skulk is like the rogue. And so that's what your character classes are. So instead of having a generic fighter's guild, it would be more like the armiger's guild and the brute's guild and the skulk's guild and the skirmisher's guild, etc. And that integrates it, and it makes it, it makes it actually fit this world. And the Archenns themselves, being, the big revered entities of humanity, are, the so-called guilds. You can't really call them a guild, because a guild is something kind of low and lame. Like these are more elevated things. This is more like the church, right? This is the group, the organization that is serving and promoting the will of one of the 12 immortal Archenns that made the world. That's more like the cathedral, like the church or the government itself. That's not really a guild, right? So we couldn't call them guilds. We call them Archenn courts instead of Archenn guilds or whatnot. So you have your 12 Archenn courts, the one for the skirmisher, the skulk, the wayfinder, armiger, brute, and bulwark, chanter, conduit, devout, arcanist, numinist, and tetrarch, right? Those are your 12 Archenns and the 12 Archenn courts. So, now that you know why those are there and why they're called what they're called, and for the rest of the video, we're going to call them Archenn courts and not fighters guilds or whatnot. Next, they have to actually do something different than any other guild in any other game. You play D&D 5e, and what are the Harpers? Who are they? What do they promote? What do they do? What about the Zhentarim? Have any idea? No, because first of all, the game doesn't actually integrate the world lore into the system, but also, the Harpers and the Zhentarim are boring. It doesn't matter. Who cares what they do? It's not actually useful. They would just give you more quests and missions and whatnot. Well, the GM doesn't need these specific guilds to give the players quests. They can just give the players quests any number of methods, in any number of ways. So we want the Archenn courts to actually give you something specific to the Archenn courts that no one else and nothing else gives you. Thirdly, we want it to solve various problems that either the characters have, or the players, or the GM have. So some kind of actual issue in the game. To me, one of the big problems that always must be solved is diegetic immersion, or the lack thereof. We want everything that the players and that the players experience to be also something that the characters experience. We want an in-world justification for everything, right? So let's get into the actual first example. We're not going to go through all 12 Archenn courts in this video. It would be too long. We'll have future videos for that. We're just going to get into the 3 Archenn courts of the skirmisher archetype, right? The 3 Archenn courts of the explorer archetype. We have explorer, warrior, king, and mage, right? So the 3 Archenns of the explorer archetype are the skirmisher, the skulk, and the wayfinder. Let's get into those in order. So first, the skirmisher. What does the skirmisher do? First of all, the actual aesthetics and whatnot of the guild hall, the building itself, should be different per court, right? So you go to the skirmisher, and what the skirmisher Archenn himself did in life, and when you choose that character class, what you do as a skirmisher is you go into combat, into danger, you fight, you make your attacks, etc., and then you run out. You always end your turn in safety. You're always running past enemies and moving back and forth and moving in and out and whatnot. That's your whole shtick as a skirmisher. You're not on the front lines. You're not surrounded by enemies. You're not shoulder to shoulder. You're in and out, right? That's what skirmishing is. It's kiting. So if you have a guild hall, a building like that, it might be something like an actual wheel that like rolls around the environment and whatnot, and it can stop and has like a door at the bottom and people go in. That's your guild, and then it moves around, right? You want to take the theme of something and turn it up to 24. You want to make it go absolutely crazy and take that theme all the way to the ceiling. And so anyway, yeah, the building itself would match what the skirmisher does. Oh, this is a moving building, or maybe they don't have a building. Maybe it's like tents and whatnot because they're nomads or whatnot, and they're always moving from place to place. However you do it, you want to make sure that the structure and organization of the building itself isn't just, oh look, it's a guild hall with a roof and walls, and it's like boring, lame. Let's do something cool. All right, so onto the actual cool thing about it. The skirmisher Archenn court, when you walk into the guild, you walk into the court, you join, you sign up, you're one of the fighters in the fighters guild. Right now you're one of the skirmishers in the Archenn court, right? The benefit they give you, the boon they give you, right? They all give you some kind of blessing or something when you're there, and that's the cool thing that this whole video is about. The cool thing they give you is teleportation. Specifically, when you leave civilization and go out into, I don't know why that is there. When you leave civilization, go out into the wild, into some delve or ruins or wilderness location, and you go out, you're fighting, you're doing whatnot. At the end of your adventure, at the end of the day or however long it takes, they teleport you back to safety, right? The reason we came up with this, I think this was the first one we ever came up with, actually, out of the Lord's generosity. The reason we like this and came up with it is because this is a diegetic, immersive, in-world explanation as to what a West Marches campaign is. Because at the end of every West Marches session, you're all supposed to just somehow make it back to civilization, right? You don't end the session in the dungeon. Everyone at the end of the session goes back to civilization somehow. Doesn't matter if you're in a pit of lava. Doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a battle. Nothing matters. End of the session, everyone is back at civilization. How? Why? How does that happen? Why? I want an immersive in-world explanation. Everything has to be immersive and diegetic. It has to be explained so that the players never have to leave the fiction of the game world in order to justify something. They never have to unplug from the Matrix and say, oh yeah, we have to teleport back because the meta reason that we're playing a West Marches game, right? I never want you to have to unplug. You're always plugged in. There's always an immersive explanation for it. So the whole point of the skirmisher Archenn court, you sign up, you say, hey, we want to go out into the wilds and whatnot, and whenever we need it, you teleport us back, right? The cool thing about this is it can be controlled by the PCs, give 2 tugs on a rope. It can be something like, oh, hey, you speak a command word, take us back, and then you're all zoomed back. Or if the players want to be obstinate and they're like, we really don't want to leave because, we just killed the enemies and we're about to get the treasure, or, for whatever reason, and they don't want to go back, but the GM's like, no, actually, we have to go back. It's West Marches. Then the GM can be like, yeah, well, the court just pulls you back, right? So it can be character initiated or it can be court initiated, either way. And of course, if the characters want to initiate it, the court doesn't have to respond, right? It's inscrutable. The court is like, nah, we set it up on a random timer, or we take you back when fate tells us to, right? Or when the great skirmisher, the great Archenn, the skirmisher that lives in the sky and whatnot, because they are immortal, and the 12 Archenns are immortal and disembodied in the living world, right? And so it's like, no, we just do it when they tell us to, right? So inscrutable. So you as the GM always have control. So yeah, that's the skirmisher. You go to the guild, you get that benefit. It's an actual thing that solves a problem, and the problem being West Marches is not immersive or diegetic. This solves it. The skirmisher solves it. All right. Next, the skulk. Okay. We like the skulk. This doesn't specifically solve a meta problem or anything. It's just a cool thing. So the skulk is like the rogue, the thief, etc. The whole gist of the Archenn itself is about all that sneaky stuff, but not necessarily evil. Actually, not evil at all, because the whole point of the 12 Archenns is they are pro-civilization, pro-humanity. We want to fight against chaos, fight against dream, fight against all that laziness and vice. We want prosperous, pro-human, human-centric society, civilization that takes us to utter prosperity and beyond the stars, right? Like it's all that up and up and up growth, everything pro-human, pro-goodness, pro-everything good, right? So even the Skulk, the one that works in the shadows, they are like the assassins from Assassin's Creed 1. We work in the shadows to serve the light. It's that kind of thing. And so we were thinking, if you have the Skulk Archenn court, they probably wouldn't be with all the rest of the Archens out there, fighting chaos in the wilderness and whatnot, because that's what most of these, guilds do. That's what most of the courts do, is they're helping you fight, enemies out in the wild, adventuring and whatnot. Most of them aren't in the safety of civilization, but the Skulk is. Why? Because you have to have someone acting essentially like a police force. You have to have someone that, after you have conquered part of the frontier, and it's now civilized, someone has to watch for, evil activities like cultists rising up and betrayal from within and all that kind of stuff. You can't really take the troops from the front lines, the fighters and barbarians and whatnot, and turn them inward and have them protect civilization from within with brute force, right? That doesn't work. You need to have a more clandestine, secret group that does that. That is the Skulk Archenn Court. They're essentially like Batman or the CIA. Of course, they're not vigilantes. It's all, it's like the government. It's the church. It's part of there's no difference between government and church in the world. It's the same thing. It's the Archens, right? They are the ones that made humanity. So yeah, it's like that. The actual benefits you get, though, from working with the Skulk Archenn Court is, one, spying on people through control. It's really cool. So you can actually go to the court and essentially embody someone for a certain amount of time. It depends on checks and whatnot. It can be just a minute or two or an hour or a day or whatnot, but you essentially let your body lie dormant and you control someone else. And you have, their body and their mannerisms and speaking voice and everything. So if you, so some people sign up with the Archenn Courts and they're like, hey, I'm not going to join the Archenn Court of the Skulk and whatnot. I'm just a bartender. But I have lots of people coming into my bar who might be ne'er-do-wells or cultists or whatnot. I don't know what to look for. I allow you anytime you want, Mr. Skulk Archenn Court members, like the PCs, I allow you to take over my body and investigate and essentially spy through my eyes. And then, their minds switch so that the bartender in this case is back in the body of your PC in the Archenn Court, like sitting in a chair or whatnot. And so you, it lends to this doppelganger effect where the person isn't disguised or anything. You can't ever dispel it or anything, but at any time, a member of the CIA, a member of the Archenn Court, could be in the mind, in the body of this character you're looking at that to you has been your lifelong friend, but they just took him over and they're now spying on everything. And so it leads to this, CIA Batman kind of thing where they're in disguise and they could be anywhere. And so that's how they maintain order and infiltrate cultist groups and insurrectionists and all sorts of things. That the Skulk does it within society. Of course, you can take over someone who didn't sign up for it. You can take over some random dude. And then, of course, their mind switches to your body. And, of course, if you are taking over a bad guy, you probably want to restrain yourself and whatnot so that they can't do anything. But still, they're aware. For that hour they're sitting in your body, they're like, oh no, someone else has my body. And so when they eventually switch back, it's super dangerous because now they've gone back to their own body and they're like, hey guys, I wasn't myself. We were getting spied on, red alert. And so it's very dangerous to actually take over someone who didn't sign up for it, who's not your enemy. The only reason you're going to take over someone like that is because you're going to act now. Because if you wait at all after the time that you switch back, then it's over because, they're going to go on high alert. So anyway, that's something that the PCs can actually do. It's just, it's a cool thing. Also, it's essentially like, the CIA, the FBI, or the Morag Tong in Morrowind. If you're part of this Archenn Court, you can go out and, kill bad guys, assassinate, etc., do, breaking and entering, spying. You can break a bunch of laws, and you essentially have a get-out-of-jail-free card. Hey, I'm with the Archenn Court. I'm with the CIA. Can't touch me. I'm doing official business. All right, yes, sir. It's like being a Thane in Skyrim. It's like, I'm your Thane. I get out of jail. You're like, all right, fine. It's that kind of thing. So that's the whole Skulk thing, is that you get to spy on people. It is the court you want to join if, and per setting, there might be restrictions on how many courts you can join or which courts. Maybe you can join these because they play nice, but if you join one of these, you can't join one of these, right? It's really up to the GM what restrictions they put on which ones are even in the setting and which ones you can join and when and for how long, etc. But anyway, if you want a more political intrigue type of game where it's within cities and civilization and not out adventuring in the wilds, then the Skulk Archenn Court really helps you with that. Alright, lastly for this video, the last one of the Skirmisher archetype. Remember, there are 9 more Archenns to go in coming videos. The last one is the Wayfinder. This one, I think I like more than the Skirmisher. And definitely more than the Skulk. This one is cool. This solves another meta problem. This might be my favorite. I really, really, really like this. Alright, the Wayfinder. In my system, it's kind of like Ranger, but it's more and better, and just don't think Ranger. It's one of the explorers in the explorer archetype, right? They connect to the land, to animals, they connect to biomes specifically, and the angle magic and all sorts of cool stuff. Way more than just I'm a ranger, right? In my world, ranger is a profession, like dungeon delver. Are you going into dungeons or are you patrolling the borders of civilization, right? But that's an occupation, right? A barbarian and a wizard can both be a ranger because they're patrolling the borders of civilization, in the same way that a barbarian or a ranger could both be dungeon delvers, right? Your set of abilities doesn't necessarily dictate what you do with them, right? So we don't have ranger as a class, it's an occupation. You can be a ranger by just being a ranger, patrolling the border between civilization and the wilderness. Anyway, the Wayfinder is much more than that. They actually have abilities connected with the land and whatnot, but their main thing is finding stuff, wayfinding. They search for biomes, they search for points of interest, all sorts of stuff. They are the initial explorers that go out into the wasteland, or not wasteland, into the wilderness, into the borderlands, all that, and they find points of interest and whatnot, and they bring it back to civilization and say, hey, fighters, wizards, etc., I found this ancient dwarven ruin here, this elven ruin there, this delve over here, this dungeon there. Y'all want to go out and explore it? And then it's like, oh yeah, the wizard's like, oh yeah, I want to go to the ancient elven ruins because they have, elven magic and whatnot. So these are the initial scouts. That's one of their purposes. Of course, you can actually play a Wayfinder and they have abilities in-game and whatnot. But anyway, keeping in that theme of exploring and being the first ones out into the wilderness, the Wayfinders, if you play a Wayfinder, you actually have, as long as you're in the Wayfinder court, you don't even have to be a Wayfinder, you can just join the court and get this ability. But you go to the Wayfinder Archenn court, you get the blessing essentially, and as you go out into the world, you detect points of interest within a certain radius of you, right? And again, the actual radius is up to the GM. They can, say, oh, this Archenn court is, weak and only has, amateur Archenn Court members, so they can only give you a weak blessing, so that you can only, detect points of interest within 6 miles. And another one might have a really high level Wayfinder, and they give you better blessings so you can detect it longer, right? It's really up to the GM. But the thing is, you get to detect different points of interest, like Skyrim. In Skyrim, you're walking along and you have your compass up top, and you're walking along and a little cave symbol pops up. Now, how the heck does your Dragonborn character know that there's a cave 600 feet north behind that mountain? Or that he actually knows the difference between a dwarven ruin and a Nordic ruin and a settlement and a cave. Like, he knows all the differences between all these things just with a sixth sense. Why? Well, here's the immersive in-world diegetic explanation for it. That's actually one of the boons you get from the Wayfinder Archenn Court. That's their whole shtick, is knowing things, is knowing things about the environment, about the world itself, right? And so you get this blessing and you're walking along, and this is the thing that the GM can do. It's like, hey, as you're going through this hex, it pings in your mind 6 miles north, the next hex, there is an elven ruin. Or even it's the elven ruin, Ingvamthium or whatnot. He can give you the name. And so, or like, again, different levels of how much you know. He can say, there is a point of interest north. Or he can say, it's a ruin. Or he can say, it's an elven ruin. Or he can say, it's the elven ruin, Eldamon or whatnot, right? So however much information the GM wants to give, it's entirely up to him. Again, GM has control over this stuff. The players aren't going to essentially just power game and say, oh, I get to do whatever I want because the book says so. No, it's very much in the control of the GM. Whether or not you even have this ability at all, the GM can just not put the Wayfinder in the game, not put the Wayfinder Archenn Court in the game, in the world, and so you just don't have access to it, right? It's totally up to the GM how much of this you get, if any. So anyway, there's that, right? And then, my really favorite thing, this justifies why your character in Skyrim can just detect things all over the place. He when he was younger, or before he got to Skyrim, he went out and found a Wayfinder Archenn court and signed up, and now he's in Skyrim, and now he can just detect things, right? That's cool. Also, it can last for a certain amount of time. Maybe it's permanent. Maybe it only lasts a year. Maybe it only lasts a month. Maybe it only lasts a day, etc. Really up to the GM. So much variability. But the really cool thing, the thing we really, really, really like, is when you have a bunch of these Wayfinder Archens, not Archens, people with Archennial mantles, when they go out into the world and they're detecting things, or even, so when they go out into the world and they're finding all these POIs, they don't even have to visit each of the points of interest, they just kind of know that they're there. They're essentially mapping a region, and then they come back to the Archenn court, and they all essentially, draw with their map, or they just like touch a map and infuse it with knowledge or something, right? Kind of like the wizard with the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where he just made the map out of the person's experience. It's that kind of thing. So they go back and they just essentially make a map of the whole region that is technically unexplored, because they just kind of walked around a few places and came back. They didn't really touch any of these areas or explore any of them at all. But they come back, they infuse all their information into various maps and whatnot, and you have a map of the region that technically no one has explored, but it's full of points of interest. This solves the meta problem of how in the world the GM can give the players a map of the region and put cool things on it, and technically the characters would have no way of knowing any of that, right? This is it. This is why. This is the immersive in-world diegetic explanation for what that is. And I need to actually open my browser so it'll actually... There we are. Cool. So yes, this is a map that we are currently working on for our current group, right? It's not done yet. As you can see, the left half is mostly blank. But we were doing this, and we were, we have, a town here and a town there, and a cave here and town there. And so there are some things that the players know, but we're putting things like ruins here, or like, in the middle, I know it's really blurry. It says ogre birds, right? And in the west, there's a statue here, and over here, there's a tower, and up here, there's a dark tower. And as you can see, there are these blue crystals in various places, right? The big ones on the left here, big one down here. There's some sort of crystal thing there. Another blue crystal here, blue crystal here. So we have all these things, and I was thinking, okay, is this just a GM facing map? Because I don't want it to just be a GM facing map where I see the map with all the cool stuff. I want to give this to my players. I want them to see it. I want to entice them, like, oh wow, I wonder what that is. I see this blue crystal. I don't know what it does. I see this arch over here on the left. I don't know what it does, what it is, but that makes them want to go out and explore it, right? You don't want to just say, oh, there's a rumor of a blue crystal somewhere, or worse, no one knows because no one's explored it, and so you just have to find it yourself, right? It's fine for a video game when you have full agency and you can walk wherever you want, but with tabletop, it's a lot harder to get players to just say, all right, yeah, I explore west, hoping to find something, right? Players generally don't do that. They have to have something to anchor onto first. Oh, I heard about the arch to the west, I go find the arch in the west, right? No one just says, yeah, I go west. That it's just, so you have to give them something to go after. You have to give them these anchors, and a map is a great way to do that, because you can give them these little, symbols and icons. There's a cave here and a ruin there and a tower there, and that's like, ooh, I wonder what's there, right? This is the thing that the skirmish, or the Wayfinder Archenn court does. They go out, they explore, they bring that information back, they build maps, and they give those maps to everyone and says, hey, we don't know what's out there. We know that there are hills and there's some kind of blue crystal. I don't know what that is. There's a ruin over there. I think it was an elven ruin. It pinged in my mind, but I don't know. Etc. They just tell you, yeah, these are all the things on the map. We don't know what any of them do or what they are, but we know that they're there. That is enticing to adventure. That tells the players, hey, there's something to go after. And so, I'm sitting here building my map, and I'm thinking I want to give this to the players, but I didn't have a justification as to why until this. I was like, wait a minute, this is the justification. The Wayfinders built this map, that's why I can just hand it to my players, and it fixes it. There's a meta thing of a map that they have in front of them, and until now there was no explanation as to why the characters have this map of a region that technically no one's explored, right? They shouldn't have anything, no map at all. They should have to make their own map. But this is the reason why. So we really, really, really like the whole, these three are really cool. There are 9 more, and we like all of them. But the Skirmisher and the Wayfinder both solve a meta problem, the West Marches, and why players have maps. of regions they haven't explored. And this is a reason to actually go to these Archenn courts and interact with them and sign up for the guild and whatnot. And these are true explorers guilds. They actually help you explore. They don't eliminate exploration. On the contrary, they give you a reason to explore. They give you permission to go out. Hey, explore, go as long as you want, because you'll bamf right back to civilization when you're done, right? And the whole skulk stuff with the in civilization is cool. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for feeding the algorithm, liking and subscribing. We still have a Discord server, and we still have people on there, even though when I don't make videos, no one comments on anything. So I need to make more videos. We also have our wonderful, loyal patron that is, I don't know why he's still there. I guess he just has faith in me, but that's wonderful. So yeah, thank you all for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And the next 3 videos should be about the warrior, the warrior Archenn courts and what they do, the armiger, the brute, and the bulwark. And then the next, the next video after is the chanter, the conduit, and the devout. And then the next one after is the arcanist, the numinist, and the tetrarch. And they all have different abilities, different reasons why you should actually join this guild, why you should actually join the Archenn court, and how each of these serves a different playstyle. Because it's not just, oh, they give you some random ability, like you get more HP. It's like, no, it's different playstyles, like West marches versus normal, right? It justifies a different actual playstyle, something like 4th edition, high power, just kill monsters forever and ever. We actually have an Archenn court that gives you that style of play. Anyway, we'll get to that. Thank you for watching and all that, and have a good day. God bless.